It's just the whole country has become so polarized. Which candidate can best show that they're going to bring change, which is what America wants, that's who's going to win.
Harris versus Trump. The 2024 United States election is shaping up to be one of the tightest elections in the country's history. Every poll has the election on a knife edge, with many pundits saying the result is just too close to make any early predictions. I'm joined by Steven Okun, CEO of APAC Advisors and former member of the Clinton administration. Steven, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with the mood in the U.S. right now. People are frustrated, they're angry. They say that America is not what they recognize the country that it used to be. What do you think has to change?
Well, you use the right word, change. The Americans want change. And look, it used to not be this way. Now, literally every election is a change election. And this election is going to be a change election because, as you say, Americans are not happy. They're not happy with the economy. They're not happy with immigration. They're not happy with the hyper-partisanship that we see. They're not happy with the forever wars. Which candidate can best show that they're going to bring change, which is what America wants, that's who's going to win.
And what would you say, the big ticket issues that's going to actually bring voters out on November 5th?
Well, the two core issues in this election across the board are the economy and inflation, and they're bucket number one, and immigration is bucket number two. The voters do give an edge to Donald Trump when it comes to who's better at handling the economy.
What about reproductive rights?
That is a huge issue. It's a little bit of a wild card in terms of predicting what's going to happen, because you have to understand, the first time in the history of the United States when a constitutional right was taken away from Americans. And that is when the Supreme Court, because of who Donald Trump put on that Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade, and no longer did women have constitutional protections when it came for the right to choose.
And elections in the U.S. in particular seem to really be a magnet for celebrities, and the candidates like to lean on that star power. So let's take specifically Taylor Swift. She has over 500 million social media followers. Does she have the star power to deliver Harris a win?
She definitely can. So, but the interesting thing, I think, for the Swifties is not just can she get them to register to vote and then go out to vote, but can the Swifties influence their fathers, their husbands, their partners to vote? Because the Swifties, one of the biggest issues for them is reproductive freedoms. And can a Swiftie go to her dad in this case and say, you know what, Dad, I know you voted for Trump last time. I know you want your corporate tax cut. I don't care. I want my reproductive freedoms. Reproductive freedoms are just as important to me because they're important to my wife, they're important to my daughter.
I'm just picturing all of the Swiftie dads standing outside of the concert stadiums waiting for their daughters wearing the friendship bracelets. Certainly. Okay, the other wild card here in terms of for Trump's camp, Elon Musk has been very vocal. How do you rate the Musk effect?
Elon Musk is a successful business person without question. You could argue he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the history of the United States at this time. And for him to say, right, that I trust Donald Trump's good for me as a business person, that can have some sway. So Elon Musk could be as much a factor and maybe more of a factor in this election than Taylor Swift. But you have two real factors right now. And
you touched on this a little bit, but let's get a bit more down to the nitty-gritty of, often it's said that the U.S. doesn't have one election, it has 51 elections. Which states this time around are in focus, and which way do you think they will swing?
Because so many states have become blue states, meaning they're going to vote for the Democrat no matter who they nominate, who the Democrats nominated. And the Republicans are going to vote red. Those red states are going to be Republican no matter who the Republicans nominate. We've now self-sorted and we're down to 7 states. We have 3 in the upper Midwest. We have 2 in the Southeast and 2 in the Southwest. If you have 7 toss-ups, you know, when you flip a coin, it's going to come up 4-3. But in the 2016 election, those 7 states went 6-1 in favor of Trump. In 2020, those 7 states went 6-1 in favor of Biden. I think it will be 6-1 or 7-0 again because what's ever driving for those states, the economy, inflation, Trump or Harris, it's going to drive all of them or almost all of them.
You've also been the chair of AmCham, both in Singapore as well as Asia Pacific. So from a foreign policy standpoint, in terms of the U.S., what have you noticed in recent years that stands out to you?
The biggest thing is trade by far. And the U.S. stopped doing trade agreements. The last free trade agreement the United States did was with South Korea, and that was under President Obama. We've done none as a country under President Trump. We've done none as a country under President Biden. Both Trump and Harris are not talking about doing free trade agreements.
But tariffs Trump advocates for is inflationary in nature. When it comes to either a Trump win or a Harris win, what is the impact on the global economy?
Donald Trump has said he is going to do two things that are very inflationary. The first thing he said he is going to do is he is going to go back to being tariff man, but he is going to be tariff man on steroids this time around. He is saying 60% on everything out of China. We did not do that last time the United States under President Trump. It was much more isolated and it was much lower. I mean, they were targeted tariffs and they were a lower amount. Now he's saying 60% on everything and then 10 or even 20% on the rest of the world. Okay, that is going to drive prices way up, and it is also going to invite, of course, retaliation, which is going to drive prices up in other countries as well. So that is very inflationary. The second thing he said he's going to do is that he is going to deport all of those, illegal aliens, as he would call them, who are in the United States right now. The numbers that they're throwing around are 11 million people. A lot of those 11 million people are very hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying, adding to the country. You take those people out and kick them out while we are basically at full employment right now. Well, what is that going to do to wage inflation? It is going to ratchet it up. So you're going to have huge inflation in the United States. Of course, that's going to get exported to the rest of the world. He is also, in addition to that type of tariff, President Trump is very much talking about decoupling the U.S. from China, and that will have massive implications economically around the world.
And if you had to read your tea leaves, who is going to win, why, and by how much?
Well, I can tell you who is going to win, I can answer easily. And that is whoever is going to be the change candidate. And that's the challenge right now, because the Americans want change. And I mean, really, right now, it is just such a toss-up. I'm watching to see how Americans react to both of them arguing over this single question. But I will say it will be a change election.
Well, thank you very much for your predictions, Steven, as we accelerate to this November decision date. A big thank you to our special guest, Steven Okun, CEO of APAC Advisors and former member of the Clinton administration. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of I See Your Trade Season 5. I See Your Trade is brought to you by IC Markets, a leading high-performance trading provider. Trade up to IC Markets. See you next time.